Hey everyone, David Shapiro here with a very exciting video. So I posed a question yesterday on YouTube and Patreon about running Raven as an open source project. Oh, and also LinkedIn. And the response was generally really good. So without further ado, I've got a public Raven open source repo here. You can see it's already got 18 stars and 2 forks. So what I wanted to do was go ahead and introduce this project, say where we are, what we need, where we're going, so on and so forth. So first, before we get into it, I'll say that I did pick up this book, Producing Open Source Software. So I'll be reading this because I've never run an open source project before. So I need to make sure I know what I'm doing. But there have been lots of people who have reached out, folks that have experience. So we're still figuring it out. We're still in the early phases. So let me show you around this repo just a little bit. So we've just started getting the basic framework together. There's no real code yet. Mostly it's let's get organized first. So we might end up with a Slack channel or Discord or subreddit, still figuring that out. But this is going to be like the single source of truth, right? This is going to be the primary place where the work gets done, as far as I know. So we've got a discussions tab. So we've got a few discussions going already. So I've got a call for different kinds of participants. There's the initial one, and then I updated some wikis. Let's see, and then let me show you. I've got the wikis started. So actually, before I move on, if you want to join, go ahead and jump in the discussions. So, like, say for instance, if you want to participate, go ahead and jump in and comment here. We'll all talk with each other and figure out where we're going. And yeah, so that's the point of the discussions. If you have any ideas, so here's the other thing. Many of you will be familiar with my long-term chat with external sources. This one has 75 forks and 316 stars. This is like the toddler version of Raven. So if you started here, please go ahead and jump over and let's participate in the fully fledged Raven. So the big difference is that this is going to be a microservices architecture, whereas this one is like a monolithic experiment. So with all that said, we've got the discussions. Please jump in here. We can have meta discussions, like we have to learn how to do an open source project together. And there are, like I said, there are people that have volunteered who have experience. So I'll be talking with you folks. And then we've got I started building out the wiki. So for instance, we've got the homepage. Here I lay out the architecture and vision. It's very simple, very straightforward, but just kind of saying, here's the roadmap. I also created a resource of books. So here's like the top, 6 books on neuroscience and cognition, if you want to get spun up on cognitive architecture. And then finally, I laid out the release 1 roadmap. And then also, I think here I have the definition of ready. So the definition of ready for version 1 or release 1 of Raven is 1, has a long-term memory, 2, can hold arbitrarily long and meaningful conversations, 3, listens at all times unless otherwise specified. So like we want a voice command like Raven stop listening or something like that. And then can be deployed on commodity hardware. So actually that reminds me. Here, let me pause this for a second. I'll grab the original prototype I built. Okay, I know the image is small, but here's the original prototype I built for Raven. So you can see it's got a wide-angle camera, a conference speaker and microphone, and then a 7-inch touchscreen with a Raspberry Pi on the back. This is a little ambitious, so we'll probably cut this down to just the speaker and microphone for the first version. But basically the idea is I want to make it so that pretty much anyone can afford to have a Raven node running. And then we will figure out the best way to do that. Maybe we offload most of it to the cloud. So for instance, for the embedding service, we can do OpenAI or another embedding service. Obviously, large language models will run in the cloud. I'm thinking we'll go open source. Sorry, let's go back here. I'm thinking we'll go open source, maybe using like NeoX on NLP Cloud. we'll figure it out as we go. Probably Pinecone for the search. Anyways, so, but that's what I mean by can be deployed on commodity hardware. Like you can buy a $20 USB, conference speaker, and then a $20 Raspberry Pi and run Raven for $40. That's the goal. And then there's going to be a little bit more expense due to text-to-speech and ASR. So all the cloud services that you need. We'll figure that out as we go. So that is the wiki page. So this will be built out. Basically, this will be for anyone new, like all the documentation, onboarding, if you need to learn about cognitive architecture. Oh, that reminds me. One thing that I did want to say furthermore is my 3 books on cognitive architecture are all pinned to my repository. So if you want to get caught up, Natural Language Cognitive Architecture was the first one. Benevolent by Design was the second one, and then Symphony of Thought is the third and most recent one. This one is the closest representation of the architecture that we'll be working on. Natural Language Cognitive Architecture is a little bit simpler, and this is what I was working on with the long-term chatbot with external sources. So this is a simpler architecture, but we're going to go for the full Monty here. Let's see. So that's the discussions. That's the wiki. Oh yeah, and so then I also set up GitHub pages. So I just created a placeholder, but basically this will be an easier to access website. So that basically all the deployment documentation and everything will be easily accessible through here, just the same way as like Keras or TensorFlow or whatever, so that you don't have to browse GitHub directly. It'll be presented as a web page. Oh, and then finally, I did go ahead and put up the first microservice. So let me show you the rest of the repo. So we've got the docs folder, which is for GitHub pages, and then we've got the releases folder. And let's see, I'll show you here because it'll be easier to navigate. So we've got releases, R1, so we'll have R1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then we've got a folder for containing all the microservices, plus a README. So this is the master README doc for this release. And then under the microservices folder, we'll have one folder for each of the microservices. I'm thinking we'll have right now I've got 5, but that could expand, especially if we've run into anything that we need. Like we might need a separate ASR service, a separate TTS service, a slow inner loop, a fast inner loop, so on and so forth. So we might end up with closer to 10 microservices, but still the idea is that these are microservices. So the embedding microservice is based on my Google Universal Sentence Encoder version 5 microservice. And you can see this is a brain dead simple microservice. All it does is it loads Google's Universal Sentence Encoder version 5 from TensorFlow Hub and then throws it up in a Flask app and then provides 512 dimension vectors in response. And it's really fast. It takes I think last time I ran it, it was about a 20th of a second per embedding. And it doesn't quite scale linearly. So if you send it a chunk, it's actually very fast. So this is the very first microservice. And when I say microservice, I mean it's more like a nano service because it's this is 25 lines of code. So we want Raven to be super lightweight, super simple. This is an open source community edition, so we're going to keep it as simple as possible, and the complexity will emerge from the architecture and the way that it is organized. Okay, so that is how the repo is organized. You can see it all here. You can see I've got just a placeholder for Raven release 1. Also, GitHub is really slow right now. I don't know if that's for me or for anyone else, but I think that's it. So if you want to get involved, like I said, the best way is to jump into the discussions. I'm trying to aggregate all conversations here because I've got people on Patreon, LinkedIn, and other places, and I can't manage all those conversations. So we need to come together. Like I said, we might do Slack, Discord, Reddit, not sure what. But go ahead and please jump into the discussions. Go ahead and start a discussion. If you have an idea, hey, let's organize this on Reddit to have discussions, or Slack or Discord or whatever, we can start there. All right, I'm repeating myself and rambling, so I think that's it. thanks for watching. Super excited for this project. And yeah, go ahead and jump in.